Hello, and welcome to another World of UX podcast. This is your host, Darren Good. Thanks for taking the time to join us on today. Special welcome, always, to those of you joining us for the first time. Welcome to the show. Today, we were going to continue our Ask Me Anything series. We need to take another week break on that, and I'm taking a break. I'm not recording a new show for you. This time, instead, we're going to do something for the first time. I'm going to take a talk from a conference that I spoke at a year ago. The topic of that talk was the power of a SWOT analysis workshop. A lot of people in UX today, if they don't know what a SWOT analysis is, don't do them enough. Some people just, they never get an opportunity to use them. So we want to sort of help some of those of you who don't know what a SWOT analysis is. We want to give you a little bit of an introduction. For those of you who've forgotten what they are or haven't done them recently, we sort of want to stir the pot for you a little bit and maybe generate some excitement so that maybe some people can see the benefits of using a SWOT analysis in your UX operations. This talk was delivered at the CXM 360 conference at Michigan State about a year ago, roughly a year ago. I believe it was May 2024. But we're going to just share the video from that talk so you won't see the production the way you have seen the last few weeks. But you got your sound, you're going to have some nice visuals. Those of you listening by way of audio only, you'll still be able to take this content in and give you some thought. And then when you get an opportunity, go back and check out the video so you can see some of the video artifacts we're sharing along with this talk. But let's go ahead and dive in. Enjoy the talk. We'll see you at the end. So let's go ahead and get into the content. Again, you'll understand my bent on this topic. If you happen to already be familiar with SWOT analysis, you'll understand why I'm presenting it the way I am and what it is we're trying to stress. But let's level set first. I always like to start off a talk by level setting. And when you look into the history of SWOT analysis, according to the Academy of Management, the very beginning stages of SWOT were formed in the 1950s by the folks at Lockheed with their corporate development and planning department there. In 67, we started to see what was done in the 50s sort of come to a head and be more formalized. And a man by the name of Robert Franklin Stewart, who was with Stanford Research Institute, was known for putting together those foundational elements that we now know today, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We'll get into that a little bit more here in a bit. And my keynote is already doing strange things. There we go. Other early influencers were Harvard Business School, Kenneth Andrews, Albert Humphrey, who some people credit with actually starting SWOT analysis, being the author, but he was not. And Igor Ansoff. There's a few others too that, but we won't really to go through that laundry list of people today. Again, the four evaluation points of the SWOT are strengths. Where does your organization excel? You have to take the time to identify what those things are. Know your strong suits. Build on your strong suits. Learn how to maintain your strong suits. Where are your weaknesses? Where are the organization's most critical flaws? Opportunities. What factors, if they were addressed, could give your company a competitive advantage in the marketplace? You have to deliberately engage to identify those things before you can actually do them. And then lastly, threats. What elements pose the greatest risks and can do the most harm if you don't address them? If you leave them unattended, there's going to be some fallout. So you don't want to experience that. The SWOT analysis, basically, some people say it serves as a framework used to assess a firm's resources and capabilities. So that's really what a SWOT is about. So let's take a look now at some of the advantages and some of the benefits of the SWOT analysis. Number one, it facilitates what some people might refer to as flow. Some people might be aware of the book Flow. Vitaly Csikszentmihalyi, I believe, is the author of that book. Great, where you can just get into a state where you're just functioning and you're accomplishing all your best. Everything is just falling into place. He refers to that as flow. And when you know your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, it helps you to operate in flow and achieve flow a lot more easily. You gain more performance improvements. It's going to improve the way that you actually are able to do business. It helps you to better understand ways to interpret and navigate your business operations instead of just flying by the seat of your pants, frankly. It helps you to refine your findings when you do research, helps you to develop strategy. And these are all great pluses that any business would love to have and love to achieve. So SWOT is a deliberate way to help you get there. It's basically a flexible and a low-cost framework. Other than the time it takes in manpower to engage and perform the analysis, there's no extra cost associated with that. So it's very flexible, very low cost. By flexible, we mean that it's applicable across all different all business types. It's not limited. It helps you achieve triangulation with your research efforts. I'm sure anybody on the call who's used to doing research, you know and understand that research data, you're searching for trustworthy data, you're searching for actionable data, you're searching for reliable data, and triangulation helps you get there because if you achieve results via one research method and then you use two other research methods, if they don't agree, then your triangulation through those multiple sources is going to help you realize that you've got to go back to the drawing board. Something is not right. So you have to validate your design, your research findings. I'm sorry. And again, it's applicable to any business operation. A little redundancy there with regard to flexibility, but you can use SWOT analysis to look at any aspect of your business. So not limited there at all. And then got some sources down there, and you'll get a copy of this deck later, I'm sure. Let's look at some of the options for SWOT analysis. And basically it boils down to two different things. You can do a SWOT analysis without a workshop. And for the purposes of this slide, I'm going to refer to this as individual legwork, where you're just getting out there as either a team of one, maybe two or three people, going out and engaging with people to discover what are your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What are they? You can go out and do all that work individually, but it still is going to entail certain activities. You're going to need to identify and recruit participants. You're going to need to schedule interviews because you're going to get that data by way of an interview. I wouldn't recommend doing a SWOT through a survey, even if you're going to go the legwork route. You have to conduct interviews and you have to deal with no-shows. That's just a reality of doing research. You have to communicate your purpose repeatedly because a lot of people have no idea what you're doing. Even though SWOT has a history, a lot of people still are not familiar with the SWOT. So they don't know what's going on, why you're doing it. I've done them and you usually have to explain a few times so everybody knows what's going on. And until they know what's going on, they're not going to be really active participants. So that's a hurdle that regardless of whatever approach you choose with the SWOT, you're going to have to do that. You have to store, coordinate, analyze, and synthesize your data. A lot of decisions to be made, especially when you're going out and conducting interviews. Are you going to put them in an Excel spreadsheet? Do you have a research repository? How are you going to approach this? And then how are you going to make sure if there's more than one person involved, especially, you want to make sure that the input is consistent so you don't run any risks of having detrimental impact upon the integrity of your data. You have to facilitate follow through. It's one thing to gather information or even to perform a workshop, but you still have to encourage people to follow through on the findings. And you do have longer execution timelines because you're gathering information person by person, and in gathering person by person, it's going to be more lengthy. If you do a SWOT analysis with a workshop, that's going to include these steps. Again, you're going to have to identify and recruit participants. That's a given. In this case, you have to select a facilitator. That's important very important, because if the person who's doing it is either not comfortable or is not skilled at facilitating, then that's something that it could detrimentally impact the effort. So you want somebody who's going to be able to do a good job with that. You need to choose a resource. There's different ways to document, and everything's happening synchronously. Everything's happening at one time. via the research method. And there's an asterisk here that I'll likely address later. And I'll just say it now. There are times I've conducted these types of workshops in the past, and sometimes people can't make it, but they want to be able to contribute. And when that happens, you can provide them access so they can just go in when it's convenient for them and add to the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. They can add to each segment of the board. That way you have some stakeholders who don't want to be left out, they can't attend, they can do it asynchronously. But in either whatever method you choose, or whatever resource I should say you choose, you want to make sure that you get something that everybody's going to have access to. You don't have to have any extra expenses that the team is going to encounter because of it. So just choose a good sound resource. Then you have to conduct the actual session. And I'm going to show you an example of one that I did, of the result. You won't be able to read it because of the issues where we're sworn to secrecy, all that kind of great stuff, of course, that I'm sure everybody is familiar with. I did mine in 90 minutes, and it's going to be interesting, I think, to hear your feedback on what you think about the amount of data I was able to gather. Again, you have to communicate the purpose. That's a standard. You're going to have to analyze and synthesize data. You don't have to gather the data because it's being recorded in the resource you choose. That's one of the things I personally love. I don't have to document anything. I might have to extract it, but it's all input by the participants. I love that. And again, you still have to facilitate follow through, but a lot of times I think it's easier to go this route than to go the longer route. I've done them both ways. I prefer getting everything done in 90 minutes and having that dynamic that comes out of it. It's pretty cool. But then we get to I said all that to say this point. We want to talk about the hidden power of the workshop approach. Now, think about it. As we assess the power, there's power associated with each. There's power associated with any method that we choose. That goes without saying. But think about it. Which is easier? Would you rather engage with the legwork and gather SWOT data via individual sessions and take all that time, hours it would take to get all that data? I mean, how many stakeholders are you working with? How many interviews do you have to conduct? Do you have to get all the data? Then you have to go and take it and input it. There's a lot involved with that. Or would you rather conduct a session that includes all the participants and get it done swiftly, get it done where it's convenient, and have that wonderful dynamic of having everybody together, at least as many people as possible, at the same time? The energy is off the charts. The conversations are off the charts. It's fantastic. And this is one of those places where, when you think about like a focus group, to sort of compare that with SWOT analysis, you have the risk of groupthink with a focus group. In this type of a setting, groupthink is okay because somebody will hear what someone else has to say, and it may spark additional input. So I always like what comes out of that. So via the workshop option, the benefits are you get data and insights via a shorter timeline. In my examples, 90 minutes versus 3 weeks is what I've seen. You're able to log all the input and feedback in one single session, unless you choose to have multiple sessions. You could do that. It helps begin analysis and synthesis in a fraction of the time because everything is being recorded initially. So you can actually start to do your analysis while people are posting things. I mean, why wait? It allows for greater dynamics that I mentioned a moment ago by way of all the participant dialogue. That stuff is off the charts. The ideas, the thoughts, the challenges, the questions that come up are wonderful to experience those. And you do not have that dynamic when you're going one by one. You simply don't see that. As you can see here, the image, there's some text that's going to pop up on the side here, but this screenshot actually came from a SWOT analysis workshop I performed at one of the leading med tech companies in the world. And look at how much data. Again, you can't read it. I didn't mean for you to read it. I blurred some of it, and the opacity will keep me from reading it because we don't want people to see the details here. But look at all the data. Look at all the stuff. It would take weeks to get all this information. This session was attended by approximately I believe there were no more, somewhere around 9 to 12 people participated and gave us all of this data. It was dynamite. And we were trying to design a tool, a SaaS tool to help manage some tasks that were taking place in the medical environment. Really critical stuff. And to get the information we got from these people was just fantastic. I loved it. So this all happened in a 90-minute session. I mean, would you like to think about these questions? Would you like to gather actionable, practical, and trustworthy data in just one day? That's a wonderful value prop. Would gaining insights like this be helpful in your CX or UX operations? I think we all know the answer to that. Can you imagine? I already gave you my estimation, but can you imagine how long it would take to gather this info by way of doing it in a standard way, an individual, a one-by-one kind of a cadence? That it might hurt just thinking about that for some people. And now, let's experiencing the power. When you see this power that's available via SWOT analysis, you can discuss ideas with and among stakeholders, and you can achieve buy-in because of the discussions that take place. You can do that faster. That's fantastic value prop there. The collaboration that takes place fosters and highlights relationship building opportunities, which is something that a lot of people who do UX today don't even understand, don't think about, don't know, don't consider. You start relationships, you can lay sound foundations for relationships, a huge part of actual UX work that a lot of people just miss today. You engage with stakeholders, and this provides opportunities to improve and manage your UX maturity levels. That's another plus. And the speed, efficiency, and flexibility that's afforded through this exercise fosters tremendous optimization for your design efforts, buy-in, getting insights, getting ideas from people. Again, shortening that timeline to deliver on your design initiatives. Just wonderful stuff. All of that can happen by using a SWOT analysis approach. So we begin to wrap up here. I know this is all pretty quick, and I look forward to hearing any questions you may have. Again, by way of recap, the foundational aspects of SWOT were birthed in the 1950s. It evolved into its current popularized form in 1967. The 4 focal points, again, are strengths. Where's your org excel? Weaknesses. What are the critical flaws? Opportunities. How can you generate actual competitive advantage? And then threats. What things hold the most potential for risk and for harm to your operation? SWOT analysis can be performed via one-on-one engagement or via workshop. But of course, this is about the power that's available in the workshop. And the workshop approach taps into these hidden power factors, what I'll call them: speed, efficiency, flexibility, and versatility. And add those up, and you get what I like to call, it's a word for today. You won't find it in the dictionary, but I'm coining it today: hyper optimization. And if you're like me, I am addicted to optimization. I love it. SWOT analysis is applicable to any business operation, so it's very versatile, and it has extremely small footprint. Interestingly, you do not hear UXers talking about SWOT analysis. It does not happen very often. I think this is a huge missed opportunity. I think people reserve these types of things for design sprints, and I won't even get on my soapbox. I don't have time to pull up my soapbox about that. This is a small segment, a small effort that can fit into a design initiative that can really offer a ton of benefits, and highly encourage people to tap into it. And the workshop approach, it utilizes immersive, collaborative dynamics, and it generates results faster. So I hope I've given you some good food for thought and things to think about. Thank you for the time to present here today. And I am going to now, you can find me, my podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn. I had some problems with my profile. It popped back up this morning. Happy for that. So hopefully it keeps working. I've got the UX Uncensored channel on YouTube. I have uxuncensored.medium.com. You see my blog posts. I started a new initiative, Kaizen Teas, which is where I spend time taking some of the things I say. People say, if you put that on a t-shirt, I buy it. So I finally started something, as you can find my t-shirts. This one says UX is not equal to UI. If you're one of those people that says UX, UI, I highly encourage you to stop saying that. That's in line with that UX erasure stuff that Karen was talking about earlier. I do master classes for Interaction Design Foundation. I am everywhere. So you can find me, reach out, touch base with me anytime. And now we will open up the floor for questions.
Darren, that was incredible. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm going to go through and find the questions here. Someone was in class with you and they're excited to hear from you today. Okay. And then the next person says, thank you, Darren. Can you give an example of using SWOT for a UX CX project or initiative?
Yep. I will go back to where, let's see. Yeah, I'll just do this. So in this particular issue or this particular scenario, the task was that, and I can mention a couple of things without getting in any trouble. With this initiative, we were working on a vascular access management tool and that's anytime that they're putting the syringes in, you taking blood, anything that has to do with accessing your veins. This is something that needs to be managed, and the company previously was managing vascular access initiatives using a PowerPoint. I cringe thinking about it. There was no digital solution, nothing in the browser, no applications, no nothing. And so in this particular case, while they're trying to transition from PowerPoint to an actual digital experience, and it was going to be in a browser window, we needed to understand what was working in the current state. What do we need? What type of functionality did we need to bring with us? What types of things were going on where the PowerPoint scenario did not work? What were we going to try to improve upon? And then there's some overlap there with the opportunities. What can we do to really, what's the time to task? What can we do to make everything we're doing with this more efficient than what we're doing through PowerPoint? And then what are the things that we risk if we don't execute on this properly? What do we stand to lose because we have competitors that were working on similar solutions? So let's get all this data and let's get all these subject matter experts, let's get all these stakeholders together, and let's get information from them specifically about these four. Again, some people will say, isn't that a design sprint? I think some design sprints do things differently. And if you haven't already been able to tell, I'm not a big fan of design sprints. But I'm trying to keep off my soapbox because I'm always tempted to get on my soapbox. The data that came forth out of this, I was able to analyze this data. I was able to synthesize it, turn it into action items. And then I was able to, as I was already working on the design when we did this, I was able to use this and extract certain things to make it like, I like taking audit points out of something like this. And I looked at the solution and the way we were building things at the macro and the micro level, look and see if we were addressing the things that were reflected in this exercise within the design, and look to see if there was anything maybe we missed, especially from an opportunities perspective. Is there anything we may have missed that we need to account for, or maybe put on the timeline or something on the shorter end of the spectrum? How will we prioritize these things? So there's a lot of synthesis, a lot of analysis that came out of it that helped to solidify what was going on. And I just got word, because we had some big layoffs. There are a ton of people got laid off. And I did get word, though, that they did take the information that came out of this and they were able to successfully deploy the new solution. So I'm not there to succeed, although I got a hefty bonus, even though I got laid off. Everything worked out really well. So it did help us to make sure, it helped to validate our design direction. It helped us to understand additional directions that we may not have considered via early data.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much, Darren. Okay. I've got another question for you here. Which option is preferable? Including all participants, even though some may not contribute positively or may have negative perspectives, or selectively choosing participants?
Well, two points to that. One, always select participants carefully But, and that'll sort of segue me into the second part of the answer. If anybody who hears my podcast, you're going to be familiar with me saying, I can't talk today, familiar with me saying that I'm not a fan of the terms positive and negative. I'm a fan, instead, I opt for using terms constructive and destructive. And so what will help you build, or what might tear something down? So when I approach it from that perspective, the whole positive negative thing goes out the window, and I welcome people who will say things that people might consider to be negative, because the insights you get from those people, they are worth their weight in gold. And I'd rather hear that stuff, because some people shield themselves from negative stuff, when the truth is, the emotionally intelligent way to approach that is, you will never escape that stuff. So why not manage it? Why not embrace it and manage it? So if somebody's going to say something that someone would consider detracting, I want to hear it. And I have heard some fantastic things that have come from people like that. And I've worked with people like that who have been, some people like to call them the Debbie Downers. Those people say things that everyone else is afraid to say. They say things that some other people don't want to say. But I'd rather hear it from them, what I was about to say a moment ago. I'd rather hear it from them than from a customer, because you're going to hear it. So why shield yourself from it? That's not a good business mindset, in my opinion. If you're going to tear down what I'm doing, or you don't like what it is, tell me why. Tell me why. And when I hear why, I may hear something constructive in the midst of that. When people say stuff like that, it's not tearing down what we're doing. It's giving you opportunities to go further. It's helping you to identify potholes, especially if that person is a stakeholder or they're a decision maker. I want to hear, and those people are smart. Don't take their smarts from them. They're smart people, and they got in the position they're in for a reason. So I want to hear it. And that's my mindset on that.
That's amazing.
Bring it
Everything's
on.
an opportunity.
Yes, absolutely.
We've got one more question here. How do you resolve conflicting or competing insights and priorities?
Through research and heuristics. And sometimes people will have something to say. I remember doing a design once, and I got into the habit of doing mid-fidelity wireframes back in the days when wireframes were more valued. And I was doing work for a software company, and I'm creating all these. We had a war room. We worked in a conference room. We didn't even work at our desk. We worked in a conference room working on this project. And I would do the designs, print it, put it up on the wall for everybody to see it. And somebody on the team, a stakeholder, took all the designs, and they had access to the designs. And it was a medical app. And because of that, I chose a blue color palette for the work. And the person changed everything to orange. And I'm going, what in the world? Why did you do that? And he said, because I like orange. That was his only reason for saying that. And we went back, we subject those types of things to research. I give them heuristic input, but it's the research data that becomes the major weapon, if you will, in trying to manage politics, manage biases. Those research data is way more powerful than people will give it credit for. If you think it's only going to help you determine design direction, you're missing an opportunity, because politics is going to rear its ugly head at some point in time, and bias is going to rear its ugly head. And of course, hippo management. And for those that don't know, that's the highest paid person's opinion. And people are afraid to go against what the hippo is presenting. And so you've got to rely on the research data. And throughout my career, I have always used research data to not only help to sort of squash, for lack of a better word, that stuff, but even to help people realize that my opinion, because I've been told that's your opinion. They don't know that it's actually expert opinion. And there's a difference between expert opinion and opinion. So I just present and don't take anything detracting anybody says personally. You just turn around and you use the data and you manage it. Well, we hope you enjoyed that presentation. We hope you enjoyed the talk about SWOT analysis. We hope it stirred you up a bit. We hope it helped you to understand how important using something like this can be to your UX practice. You're not going to Figma this. This is something you're going to have to know, folks. A SWOT analysis is a great strategic tool. It helps us to speak the language of the business as well. So please give it some thought. Look at it again, check it out again. Consider where you might be able to apply it and the benefits that you can get out of it so that you can drive great successes and wins for your users, for your team, for the business, for UX as a whole. Folks, don't forget, as we get ready to sign off, don't forget to check out our t-shirts, our merchandise at kaizentees.com. Go out there and check out our t-shirts, our caps, our cups, our hoodies, you name it. We've got it out there. You can check it out and you can get things like what you see here, the UX is not UI t-shirt, just a fun way to get the message out to help people understand what UX really is. And it's another way that you can help support the podcast. But this is all the time we have for today. So folks, until next time, this is Darren Hood, the host of The World of UX, signing off. Happy UXing, everybody.